Okay, hello. Welcome to Wargamer. It's me and Nathan.
Hello.
Start
Hello.
start the show. Right.
Hello.
This is a conversation,
Yeah.
a fun chat with my pal about some list archetype stuff. So archetypes and unit roles. And then we could use it. We'll relate the new Gits release to all of this, shall we?
Okay.
This will be fun. This is our way of going through it. So I did my first Masterclass video yesterday. I released it, the LRL one, and I described the LRL as a damage-dealing castle.
Okay.
Yeah?
Yeah.
Seems fair. Because a lot of the time I get asked a bunch of questions, like in the chat a moment ago, are Gits good? And...
The answer is yes.
or the answer could be no.
The answer is yes.
Yeah, there's a lot of nuance in those responses, right? If you're given those answers properly.
Okay.
Does that make sense?
They're good.
Okay, Gits are good, yes. Okay, all right, I'll give you one that's... Are Stormcast good?
They're shiny.
Let me just add shiny to this list. Hold on, debuff and shiny.
Shiny.
Let me just add that. So that's it's actually better written like that. So I'll keep that. Yeah, thank you.
Yeah.
Okay.
Shiny with a small s.
Yeah, exactly. So basically, I just wrote down a bunch of archetype stuff, and some of this stuff already exists. So if you've been on the wargamer.com and you've read my workbook, the workbook of the Duchess, which I wrote like 5 years ago now, you'll be able to go through a bunch of this stuff if you go read that book. Again, available on the wargamer.com. It's free, so I'm not trying to sell you a book. What am I, a Scientologist? Anyway, and so, yes. Yes, Zotan! Anyway, so what I thought I would do is talk with you about some of this stuff. Because one of the things I didn't want to do was just create a bunch of hyperbole. I don't want to make a bunch of rubbish up just to try to justify having conversations about it.
Yeah.
Because sometimes it's really tough to describe stuff when people ask me with any nuance. Like, it's good, it's bad. Yeah, it feels a little bit, tell me how the list works. Is it just does it, just use it. But that seems to be something that kind of escapes people. It's a beast. I have 70 spider riders. Oh my god. You are what we would call a shiny list. Your list is shiny. Right.
70 spider riders.
Yeah.
Okay, great.
Hello, Tom Stars. Hello. So yeah, the army archetypes. So what but then also when you write an archetype, so you're talking about a castle, still people don't really know how this was when I was going to. They don't know how the units inside that army work.
Okay.
That's when I was gonna this where it says Samwise. I was gonna describe all of the different unit roles as Lord of the Rings characters.
Okay.
So
You started with Samwise, and then that was it.
He's a support.
You got
no,
Frodo.
Frodo is a points grabber.
Yeah.
Yeah. Bit of a an assassin. I haven't done that one yet, and I couldn't work out who in Lord of the Rings was a screen. I thought it was like Minas Tirith.
That was Merry and Pippin on a screen.
They were not a screen.
They were. They just got in the way.
Yeah.
Oh.
Well, I mean, no, Gimli. I mean, yeah, Boromir. Okay, that's a great shout. Okay, Boromir. Yeah. Okay, thanks, chat. Yeah, everyone in the chat is Boromir. Oh, poor lad. And I don't know who an assassin is yet, so we'll come up with that. Anyway, so I thought we'd talk through this together, if that's cool with you.
Yeah.
And I'll try and give some examples. I'm going to do a more pro video on this, but this is like a chat about it, because some of this stuff I'm not 100% certain on, and it's worth chatting about if you're up for it.
Yeah.
All right, cool. All right, so archetypes are the grand strategy of the army, how not unfortunately the actual grand strategy, but the strategy of the army and how it plays.
Yeah.
What's its archetype. So the ones I've got here are Alpha Strike, Beta Strike, Pin, Castle, Damage Dealer, Damage Check, Debuff, and now Shiny. Shiny is the one, right? And I wonder what you think about these. So we'll start with the first one, Alpha Strike. It's the easiest one, but I think that's still one that is new to a lot of people.
Yeah.
If now chat, I want you to be legends. If there's anything you're not sure about in the chat, then just be I've never heard that term, or I don't know what that is. So I want to know how common it is. Do you know what I mean? To know these things. Because you and I know what an Alpha Strike is.
Yeah.
Do you want to tell me what you think an Alpha Strike is?
So it's a fast army, or it's an army that can hit you straight away, first turn, and it hits hard.
Yeah.
That's it.
Yeah, that's basically it. So Alpha Strike actually comes from the Vietnam War, the term.
Oh, really?
Yeah. It comes from the Vietnam War, and is destroying your target so effectively that they can't respond.
Yeah.
So that's where Alpha Strike comes from. And yeah, that's basically what it is. So you attack your opponent and you do so much damage in the first turn, or you kill so many of those key pieces that they're not able to return.
Yeah.
So that's an Alpha Strike. Pretty simple. Examples of this in a Gits list is nothing, because the problem with the Gits list, like a Khorne list, is they've only ever been what I call a mid-board army.
Yeah.
So they can only really aggressively. So I talked on the Masterclass video about threat range, or sorry, like your your threat range, and then your actual range.
Yeah.
I can't remember what I actually called it, something else. And your threat range is like, sure, with your squig hoppers, you can move 3d6 and then charge 2d6, right? So it's 18. So what is that? That's 30 inches.
Yeah.
But effective range, thank you, chat. Effective range. So you've got your threat range and your effective range. So your threat range is 30 inches. But on 3d6, I think the number is like it's an 11, and then the 2d6 charge is 7, average. So your effective range is 19.
Well, yeah, squig. I mean, you can sort of do something that hits, but it's normally just with the Gits list. So I could send out a unit of squigs because I could cast like Squiggler or D3 units. So I could send out like up to 3 units. But an Alpha Strike is normally the whole army turns up, and it all works together.
Yes.
Yeah, like chop, chop, chop.
Yeah. So
or
a good
shoot, shoot, shoot.
Yeah, or shoot.
Yeah.
So good examples would be a ton of eels in Undead Thiefkin. They're pretty fast.
Yeah.
I would say probably those silly. I mean, ogres really with Kragnos, like Gargants with Kragnos.
Oh, yeah, like
I mean,
the-
Gargants
yeah,
really
the-
stand on objectives more.
So you want, the vast majority of the army to be shooting or doing damage when you go and you're going straight away. So yeah, so like some Stonehorns and Kragnos.
Yes.
That will be most of the army, the ogre army, and it all hits together and right at the beginning of the game, and that's alpha.
Not that it's the right way to play it, but also Iron Jaws.
Yeah.
Like Iron Jaws have got the potential to alpha strike you all the time.
Yeah, exactly. So they could use the fast stun, and then they could do a load of mighty destroyer moves and even a teleport. So they could all just be up there, going straight away, do a while. So they've got +1 to charge, and then just go.
Yeah. I'd say that flies as an example, because I don't think they're necessarily. So I will call them what we call an alpha blocking list. So, or a pin list is like another example of what people generally tend to call these. So pin is alpha blocking. So we'll come to that in a minute. Beta strike is one that people aren't sure about. Someone said they know about beta cucks. Do you know about beta strikes?
So I guess that's more of a counter strike, is it? So it's like.
Yes, Counter Strike.
Yeah.
Yeah. I probably should just put Counter Strike, and then that probably clears up a lot of confusion. So thank you. I'm gonna do that now. Yeah, it's when your opponent attacks you, and then you're able to absorb the attack, and then you just attack them back. Because there are some lists that are designed to work that way.
Yeah, or else you're waiting for your opponent to move into a certain position, and then you just go.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
So,
Yes. Yeah, like a lot of that would be Rush B. There's another good example. So some of the battle plans where missions are in the middle.
Yeah, you wait for them to move on to the.
And then you hammer them.
Onto the objectives, and then you just fly in and.
That's probably because you're doing trading, right? Which is also something that should be discussed. So a good example with this in Slaves to Darkness is that Chosen absolutely bully people.
Yeah.
Right,
they're not the fastest, are they?
They're not the fastest, no. So what you would do with, in a Chosen situation is you would, if there's an objective in the middle, you'd move a unit in the middle, then you'd run up with the Chosen, then they'd attack the unit on that, and then you would attack back. Yeah. And also, it's a natural counter to the Alpha Strike. Like, an Alpha Strike can only really work in the way it's designed to work. Like as the Flyers examples, the Flyers all get a pre-game move up the board. The Big Stabbers were a good example of an Alpha Strike army. They would all pre-game move up the board and then charge you. So what your job to do is survive and then count it back.
Yeah.
You know, and screens are really important in that. And I guess most armies are trying to be Counter-Strike armies in some ways, or have the ability to Counter-Strike.
Yeah, quite often the Alpha Strikes that have done better have been more of a shooting Alpha Strike, where they turn up and shoot over the screens and take out stuff, like KO used to be with the big boat full of dudes.
I mean, they still do that, right? Like, they still drop out the sky with the boat. They're still doing okay numbers.
Yeah.
Like, I think that's still how KO work. Really, they still Alpha Strike. That's actually
well, yeah, but they don't have enough to they don't have enough to blow armies away as much as they used to.
No, they used to kill an army on the
they
first
used to
turn.
be able to kill like 1,500 points of an army first turn, which they can't do now. So they have to be able to kill stuff, but then also know that they're not going to kill, and they're not going to absolutely disable the army, which is what you want an Alpha Strike, is to go in and just disable an army.
Yes, absolutely. So then you got so that's Counter-Strike.
Yeah.
So then this is the other one. So this is pin alpha blocking, or pin or alpha blocking. Pin makes sense. But it's the same thing, right? What you're doing is, with the alpha blocking list, is you're running up the board, then you're just pinning them in to their deployment so they can't leave. I mean, if you can't retreat as well, so the Cron Spine is the version of that that does that. But like 30 pink horrors in the no retreat one is probably the correct thing to say.
Yeah, it's sometimes an Alpha Strike will be like that as well, won't it? So like an Iron Jaws army that just floods across the boards, fights you on your side of the board, and so it might not disable you, and it might actually eventually lose most of its models, but by the time you've fought your way through them, they're quite tough. Some of them are. So by the time you've actually fought your way out of your side of the board, the game's over and you've not been able to score on the objectives.
Yeah.
So
like, especially like if you were playing like no book tactics, for example. So like even more so, I actually think that this alpha blocking is actually very good in the new GHB, because you can't do this one's mine. No. Against the odds anymore. So like against the odds used to be a battle tactic where you would just hold the one in your territory, basically the one you deployed on, but you can't do that anymore. So like I think that that's a way more legitimate play style, because they're going to probably really struggle turn one with a battle tactic.
Yeah, you want to be able to, if you're doing that pinning, you want to be able to pin them for like 2.5 turns at least, but you're hopefully looking to pin them for about 3 turns.
Yeah.
So that you've scored maximum on the 3 turns. Then even if they score max on the last 2, they'll never catch up to your.
Yeah. But the thing to be aware of with that is the grand strategy, because there's a real good, like, because we sometimes you can kind of forget that in the math, right? If you do hold 3 and let them hold 2, you still have to get the grand strat.
Yeah.
Like, and then if they're holding everything on 4 and 5, you might not have a lot of the board presence left, like a lot of units dead. But I think that alpha blocking is actually legit in the new GHB. Just not 100% certain the lists are there at the minute. But that's alpha blocking, and it's pinning your opponent in. That has to be. I don't know what the most miserable way to play is. I feel like alpha blocking is the most miserable way to play. Just yeet it up, stand there for 3 turns, and just get beat up. That can't be fun, right?
Yeah.
Like, but then it feels so much like Alpha Strike. I don't know. At least in this version, you hit back.
Yeah. Don't know.
Yeah.
I don't know which one. Yeah. I guess they all can be a bit awkward.
Well, like a 14-year-old on his first date. Yeah, like, oh, you're going out, are you? Oh, shut up, Mom.
I've just been alpha pinned, Mom.
Yeah, just been alpha pinned. So awkward. All right, so, again, if there's not anything you don't know in the chat, let me know. So then Castle. So Castle's the one I described in the Masterclass video. That seems like the most obvious one. No problem, Kenny. Loads of love to Kenny in the chat. Yeah, Castle is one of those ones that's like... See, again, this is the bit I want to talk about. It's because I don't know if I'm just making this up. Like when some people are like, does this army really work this way? I'm like a bit. Like, it's a bit shorthand for what is way more complicated. Like, I'm really questioning myself because I really enjoyed the video I made at the weekend and I'd like to make more, but I don't want to, like, be propagating, like...
Yeah, I mean, a lot of armies will play elements of these, but some scenarios won't let you play those that
style
way. Yeah, so then you have to change it up a little bit. So
yeah, that's true.
Yeah. Like castles work great if there's only a few objectives and you've got an objective to defend, and then you can reach out and do your thing and then reach out and just claim objectives as you need them. Whereas if there's loads of objectives all over the board, then you're going to struggle with a castle. Unless you can make a big castle that can control a larger portion of the board.
Yeah, castle's a really interesting one because, like when we talk about unit rolls in a minute, like there's a YouTube comment. There's a YouTube comment from some guy, and he was like, "How do I ever possibly stop an army from hitting me on the first turn?" And me and the chat lost our minds because I was like, "You just put a screen out." And and I replied to YouTube comments, and he was like, "What's a screen?" And you're like, "Oh my god!" And you think these things are so simple and so obvious, right? And that's kind of what I'm trying to say. Like, you want to put the idea out there that people can learn these things, because it's not even to be like, this isn't like, I mean, some of this is like, hey, to win a whole tournament, but some of it's also like just so you have a more enjoyable game.
Yeah.
Like, if you just stop someone hitting you on the first turn, that's a real good thing. I think Castle is a legitimate build, as in you have a gun platform behind, and then you have a front wall that defends. Tzeentch Castle, Marathi and the Bosniaks to a degree, although they're a bit more aggro.
Yeah.
But then I'm not sure. The Iron Drake's army, was that a castle when it was played that way? It just kind of took it. It didn't really defend itself.
Yeah, but that was when. That was quite mobile. That relied on using the bridge, and that was when you could take multiple units.
Yeah.
Yeah, over the bridge. Yeah. Then it was like a castle that flew around on a bridge. It was a castle on a bridge.
Yes, it was a castle on a bridge at one point. That's true. Yeah. That was actually pretty funny. Oh, what, the original Hallowheart list?
Yeah.
Yeah, that was awful.
A flying castle.
Yeah. Okay, I think castle's a legit term. I think all of these so far are legit terms.
Yeah.
Yeah. It was a moving castle, like Howl's moving castle. And Crouch, could you give summary of each one, an example picture with different armies? I absolutely can. That's the plan.
Yeah. So that was like an Alpha Strike castle, really, is that?
Yeah, because it moved over, did its damage, and then was
it was the whole army moved together, and it did loads of damage, and it would quite often disable armies first turn with the amount of damage.
That's
it
true.
Did.
So would you say that like a list could be like a couple of archetypes?
Oh yeah, definitely.
Okay.
Yeah.
All right, that's interesting. Because then the next two are quite interesting for me. So damage dealer, and damage check. We'll come back to damage dealer in a minute. Damage check as the really easy one is just a super simple, this is what I call the DPS check, right? But I started saying DPS check on the stream. Loads of people started saying DPS check. Now everyone says DPS check. So, I was like, I really should have, because you don't know what the fuck a DPS check is, do you?
Yeah, special check you get from the government. No, so it's a damage prevention something.
No, no, that's DPR. That's damage per second.
Yeah, damage. Oh, yeah.
Per second.
Damage.
From computer games.
You have to do loads of damage to do the stuff.
Yeah, you know what it is,
yeah.
But DPS is in the way we use it.
It's just words.
It's just words. I think some of the best lists have 2 to 3 archetypes. That's fair. So I instead of writing DPS, I decided to change it a little bit and put it as damage check.
Yeah.
Right? And then the reason I've chosen damage check is just because it just checks to see if you can do enough damage.
Yeah.
Right? He doesn't know computers have games. That's true. Real Polygeek, thanks. Wait, Rob, he doesn't know computers have games. Do you think they're just full of websites?
It's just got loads of boobies.
I like you. I like the journey. Like some people are like, I'll find even more about technology, and Nathan was like, this is the perfect amount of technology that I need in my life. Anyway, right. So damage check is literally, can you do enough damage to the army, right? And
Yeah.
that's either via like, there's two modes for that. There's like wound sink, sink, or like armor save, like.
Yeah.
In my opinion, because like those are different versions, right?
Yeah.
It's American. Because Wound Sink's the current Gits version that you played. Like I yeeted 6 Gore Grunters in it at like 2s and 2s, damage 3, and you were like, ha 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 ha! Didn't even kill one Squig Herd, you idiot! You damn fool! And then you just beat me back, right? And yeah, I guess can you kill a Kargan? Kargan? Kargan?
I can't kill one of them.
It's a Kar and a Gargan mixed together. Yeah, can you kill a Gargan? In that, like that's definitely a list, right?
Yeah.
People write that,
Yeah.
and I always think that this is like a damage check army is the worst. Is Games Workshop have done the worst job, like for me, because what happens with a damage check army is it's normally like, as an example, Gits have been really struggling for ages, really struggling, and then in the last update they were like 4+ rally. And then they were like, also, points cheaper in the next update. And you're like, they're just making it so that, like, the Squig Herd weren't... You didn't take a Squig Herd because it was a Squig Herd. You took a Squig Herd because it was 72 wounds with a 4-up rally that came back to life after. So it could have been anything. It could have just been tokens, right?
Yeah.
I always think that that's the worst version of Warhammer, damage check armies, when it's cheap units, is my thoughts.
Yeah, it is. Yeah, the Squig Herd is nice because it does do damage as well, so it fights as well as.
Oh yeah, it definitely does that.
Yeah,
like no, I just mean like for instance with Cruel Boys right now, like they just made Gut Rippers like 150 points. So you're like, right, okay, I can get 60 wounds of Gut Rippers for 450 points. It's a lot of wounds of Gut Rippers. So you start like looking at that and thinking, interesting, like 900 points, 120 wounds of Gut Rippers, you know, like. That's a legit kind of like conversation, but it's only because they got cheaper. Same with crossbows, so Craven Throne Guard from they are they 2? I think there's 5 models, 2 wounds each with a 4-up save, but it's unrenderable because it's Nighthorn. But then 85 points for 10 wounds with a 4-up unrenderable save. So they're dirty cheap, and they rally on a 5+ on their War Scroll.
Oh wow.
Yeah, right.
So,
yeah, right. Oh, they're 1 wound each. Thank you, Rob Kelly. All right, so they're not 2 wounds. So maybe not quite the right thing.
No.
So yeah, damage check, and then there's the armor save version, which is I have got 10 chosen. They're 3 wounds each. They start on a 3-up armor save, or 10 protectors. They're 3 wound each. They start on a 3-up armor save. They get a 2-up. They can get +1 to their save. Like there's definitely armor save units that do the damage check. But I don't know if that's something different. Like, is just having a really good armor save...
Sometimes it's not enough, I guess. But maybe but it does help. Toughness helps.
Yeah.
Yeah. So having a good armor save or having a 5-up ward save across the army, that's what makes Nurgle tougher. And they can sort of play that game with the flies.
Yes.
They're really hard to kill, and they are sort of like a damage check, but it's damage that gets through the ward saves and the armor saves. So they got
Yeah, Dadbod, this is where effective wounds will come into play in the conversation. I agree. Like maybe a conversation for another time. So that's effective wounds. So like, because when you're talking about like the damage output of like a unit, like so what happens with the squigs in this example on the wound sink? It's like you just need. Like you're like they're just like, okay, it's 200. Like when I play Pink Horrors, someone's like, I've done like my damage is amazing. I've done 50 damage. I'm like, bro, I've got like 280 wounds here. Like I don't even care. But 50 wounds into the armor save one is, but I don't have a save effectively. I don't have a save. Whereas in the armor save version, most of that damage just doesn't go through the save. So like, that's really tough to work out the difference between the two sometimes.
Yeah. Well, it'll depend on the type of damage you do. So like 50. If somebody did 50 mortal wounds to the Squig Herd, or 50 wounds at rend 1. To the Squig Herd, it's whatever. It's the same thing. But if they're doing 50 wounds to a unit of Chosen that are mortal wounds,
That's
50,
very different. Yeah.
as opposed to 50 wounds that way.
Yeah, I feel like the wound sync is the safer damage check of the whole lot. But yeah, some armies just can't do any damage.
Yeah.
Like they have no rend, and they just go into the armor save one. It's like the armor save guy's like, ha 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 ha. I remember firing like 100 and like against Fabian, rolling like 198 re-rollable pink horror shots or something stupid. Yeah, all re-rolling into his Archeon with a 2-up re-rolling ones. I did like 3 damage, and I was like, okay. Like it was rough, but I did 3 damage. Was the point?
Yeah. Well, remember when one of the first games that you played ever of Age of Sigmar, you did those Ripidactyls into one of the elf lords on a dragon.
Into Mark Wildman's, into Malekith of all people.
Yeah,
that was pretty funny, and then smashed him up.
Yeah, do like 100. You've got to make 100 saves, but then
168 saves, and he saved
them all except for
like 3.
3.
It sucked.
Yeah.
So damage check definitely exists as an archetype, because I think of all of them, your list ends up being a castle. Like you start writing your list, and you think, right, I've got this strong unit, but I need to protect it. You build a castle. I think Alpha Strike, you kind of like look at a couple of units, and you think, right, these are going to go and beat them up. And a Counter-Strike one is more like of a normal list. And then the damage check one is one I think you intentionally build. You like literally go, like Squigs is the current example. How many can I have? Put them on the board, get going with it. Like it seems like the current example. So like that feels like the one that's most intentional. And then damage dealer is also just because everyone loves smashing face. So this is just taking like the most output you can take. And I don't know if this is an actual archetype or if it's just sensible. You know what I mean? Like, current examples would be like Chosen. And you think, right, okay, I'm going to take Chosen over Warriors because Warriors do okay damage, Chaos Warriors. They do fine. They do fine damage, right? But, okay, probably a better example is Chaos Warriors versus... what are they called? The cultist version that do all the mortal wounds. They're called Splintered Fang.
Yeah.
So Splintered Fang don't really have a save, right? But they do a ton of damage, right? Because they do mortals and you can stack some extra attacks and other stuff. So you got some mortals that go do some damage.
Yeah.
But if they get hit back, they die. So you kind of look at them in the list and you think, right, okay, the warriors are going to survive on objectives a little bit more. They're going to be a bit more grindy, and then I'm going to take the Splinter Fang. But I feel like you could go like Splinter Fang, Splinter Fang, Splinter Fang, Splinter Fang. Instead of doing like Warriors and Splinter Fang, you can kind of just be like, everything here is just going to...
just fight.
It's just going to fight and smash.
Just for the damage.
Yeah. And I'm not sure if damage dealer is an archetype. Because surely all the armies want to do damage.
Yeah.
That's the bit I'm kind of getting at.
Yeah, but like some of them will be the damage check and then they're unlikely to be the damage dealer.
Yeah. Yeah, they're unlikely to do much damage.
Yeah.
Yeah. I think that's mainly me saying that they've got the list has got a lot of output. No, because it doesn't. Because an example, so Azrael's saying in the chat, so a glass cannon, but some lists don't have, like Chosen as our current example. They smash face and they survive. So they're like Iron Guts, smash face. They don't survive quite as well. Varangard because they fight twice. Like they're pretty good. Is there a damage dealer that doesn't do damage turn 1? That's a great question.
Well, like Chosen.
Yeah, they don't do damage turn 1.
Yeah, but then they're probably going to be in like a Counter-Strike army, aren't they?
Yes, I guess so. So maybe it's a little bit of a redundant term. That's kind of what I'm getting at.
Yeah, well, it'll be a role. It probably won't be a whole list, but it'll be a role of units in the army.
Yeah. Okay. Well, that's good. I'm gonna scrap that out then. And then it's just I think it's almost like there's like a second modifier. It's almost like it's a castle army that does damage versus a castle army that debuffs your enemy.
Yeah.
Like it's almost like are they like attack or control? Like with 2 T's, I think. Like attack plus control. Oh no. like or control. Yeah, or control. Because then you're doing one or the other.
Yeah.
In the list. Like if you're doing an alpha strike and then you control it, I don't know. Still
Yeah,
to
but
discuss.
Yeah, sometimes attack is the best method of control.
Yes, exactly. Yeah, or offensive and defensive archetype is a great way of thinking about it.
Yeah.
That's probably better. So thanks, chat. You could go for more jack of all trade vibe, both offensive and survivability. Offensive and survivability, yeah. KO doesn't have a defensive archetype. That's true. Like KO doesn't do a defensive build.
Yeah, they struggle a bit on that.
They do, right? As a whole book.
Yeah. Yeah, they used to have a more of a swampy type list where they would just have loads of Arcanauts. Remember when they used to take like 90 or 120 Arcanauts?
Yeah. Yeah, a lot. They had a lot of guys. They had a lot. Okay, final one is debuff, right? They have I don't know if debuff is an archetype, but I think maybe. It used to be an archetype.
It used to be, but now that they've limited the amount of debuffs you can put on things, so you can only -1 to hit down by one thing. So, and that used to be the main debuff, like just piling on the minuses to hit.
I think that there isn't and Legion of the First Prince was debuff army because you had the Khorne Demon Prince.
Although, yeah, I guess Nighthaunt now play as a debuff army, don't they? But they use the debuff to
be offensive.
Yeah, to power up their their attacks.
Yeah, I think debuff is one of those ones where maybe there aren't tons of current examples, Nighthaunt being a good example, but there has been versions, and then there might be versions in the future. I think that's a legitimate one because it's tough to.
Yeah, the Gits used to have a debuff army, and it was a control debuff army, so it would be the Fanatics stopping charges, and then all the minuses to hit as well.
Yeah, I would say that's more control, like Legion of the First Prince. Yes, or debuff is more like control. Yeah, because someone online, again, Nathan, terminally online as I am, fucking can't help myself. Well, when you're in a room on your own all day, it's nice looking at the internet.
Yeah, it's the best time when you're on your own.
Is debuff akin to a magic control deck? Thank you, King Callaghan, for bringing up the point I was about to say. So, the reason we just talk about DPS, is because that's something that's fairly common. I still, in videos, explain what AoE means, area of effect, because some people, I guess, haven't played computer games and they don't know what AoE is. Whereas, when you talk about Magic the Gathering, or when you talk about a lot of computer game stuff, people generally talk about Magic control decks or blue control decks. I mean, I've played some very casual Magic with a friend, and been okay, all right, we've done some cards. That's it. That's the most I've played.
Yeah.
But other people are let me tell you about famous blue control decks, and you're okay. I see you specialised in a particular type of this nerddom that I didn't.
Yeah.
So would you say? What's the best word for that? Control? Because I don't think you can say it's a blue control deck or a debuff check, because I think that confuses people. Do you know what a blue control deck is?
So it's you controlling your opponent, but not necessarily with debuffs. It can also be with things like Fanatics and movement shenanigans, like how Aetherwings used to be and that sort of stuff.
I think control's a better name for it.
Yeah.
I think control's a great name for it. 'Cause it can also be a unit role.
Yeah.
Control can also be a unit role.
Yeah.
Be'lakor, goddamn Teclis. It's got the ability. Teclis and the Cathlar have got the ability to make it so units can't move. Then Be'lakor comes in, also makes it so you can't move. The Gossamids, I definitely think that if you're running you could do a Sylvaneth list at the minute that is a castle because it sits in the corner, right? Control because it uses Gossamids to hold you off. List very comfortably, it's those two. So I definitely think they're a list that could be a combo, which I think is fun because the point of the control in the list is to protect the castle.
Yeah.
But it's a little bit more involved than that. What about spoiling, stopping your opponent from being able to enact their game plan? Yeah, is there some examples of that? Just fucking giving them loads of beer, I think. Tactic.
Well, I mean, that's what the control is you spoiling your opponent's movements and stuff like that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Nathan, shiny is a subcategory, as an archetype. Are we keeping shiny? Like,
You don't have to. I mean, it's normally Stormcast or people that really buff their armor up.
really buff their armor up. Yeah, okay, that seems fine. Because if we do shiny, then we'll have to do wet for the Idneth, and I don't think you want that.
Stinky.
Yeah, dank
Yeah.
would be one. Bellicor stops a unit from doing anything if you pass the roll for that phase. That's true, Dadbod. That's kind of what I'm saying. All right, so I think there's enough in there, and I don't think if anyone who's watching this or listens to this back has some other suggestions, I want to try and keep it super simple for when I make this. This is why I needed to do this show, because like I want to make sure that if I'm talking about this, and if it ends up being really popular, then people will use those terms. And the thing I'm really conscious of, and I've always been really conscious of when I come up with stuff, is not to put silly. Well, that's not true. I love putting silly things out in the world. Where is the meme archetype?
Shiny.
That's legit, right?
Shiny. Meme.
I think meme is a legit archetype.
Yeah. It is.
Right? Meme is a legit archetype. That's actually a great shout. Who said that? Dark Lord of the Cheese. Fucking great shout. That is a good one. Thanks, Isgoose, for resubscribing. Are there any armies that are just all-rounders? Yes. Loads. Yeah. Loads. I guess you could just call it an all-rounder. But I think the point about trying to at least roughly describe how the list might play, probably a Counter-Strike army is probably an all-rounder. You set up a screen, and then you hit your opponent when they hit you.
What about ones that are like, I guess, they might be castle? I'm just thinking of armies that have got shooting that draw people across the board to you.
That's like a strategy, right? Like I always say, that's keeping people honest. You mean just like you shoot enough that they have to run towards you, or otherwise the damage.
And then you've just got some damagey stuff that's moving towards them.
Yeah,
but I don't know.
Yeah, well, that's like that. That's the classic list.
Yeah.
You like old school OBR, right? They'd have two catapults. They'd fire them at you, and you'd be like, I can't fucking have them keep firing these catapults at me. So you'd yeet across the board to try and fight them, and then Mortek Guard would be like, we don't die, right? And that would be
they'd be moving forward. But I was thinking more of I guess that's right. And you got super mobile armies, but they're normally like an Alpha Strike. But I'm thinking more maybe not an Alpha Strike, so stuff like the old Foxes, that sort of mobile army. That's just like a.
Oh, you mean like an evasion army?
Yeah, just bouncing around, doing a little bit of whatever it needs to do, enough to score the points, and then it moves away before you can get to grips with it.
That's actually really interesting. Thank you, Dritz, for resubscribing. Loads of love. I think that's actually really interesting, like an evasion style army. I'm just trying to think of versions, because the Foxes definitely did that. Yeah. You're right. I'm just trying to think of other lists.
Now KO sort of have to play like that.
Cowards army. Yeah. An absolute fucking cowards army. Yeah. Teleporty Sylvaneth. That's interesting.
Yeah. Well, that's what KO are, aren't they? They're teleporting away. They just go to a corner, fight there, but making sure that enough of you can't get to them. And then.
Yeah, I think the idea
before you get there, they try and get away.
That fits in control, I think, right? Because they're effectively controlling your ability to hit them. Yeah. I think being broad is good, and then you can kind of just stress it down.
Yeah.
I like what someone just came up in the chat, because I hadn't thought about talking about this, but this is actually really true. Army tempo is something that when I do live streaming, I try and really explain to people.
Yeah.
Because actually it's quite important, and it's tough to kind of express, but armies do have a tempo. Like anything that has summoning can either have a consistent or ramp up level of like tempo, whereas every other army effectively has a degrading tempo. So you do have a couple of like scale, like the ways the armies work. Like, and I do think armies have other tempos. Like Iron Jaws are a very fast tempo army. and if they lose all their pieces on turn 2, they're in a real struggle.
Yeah.
Whereas Tzeentch maintain their tempo. It's pretty static.
Yeah.
They normally lose what they resummon, but that's pretty unique because normally armies go. Again, I don't know if I'm saying this right, so if you don't agree, I think an army normally degrades, so its tempo goes down.
Yeah.
But some armies can maintain their tempo or even increase their tempo.
Yeah. So like Slanesh, it's like summoning a lot.
If they can summon
Yeah.
enough.
If you don't bash them off the back of the board,
Mm.
but if they've had enough time, they'll might end up the game stronger than they were when they started.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. What type of army would you call a summoning list? It really depends on what the summoning list was. FEC. FEC spike really hard at the start, right? Because they have all that summoning.
Yeah.
And then that stuff falls off. Soul Blight, yeah. Like, I mean, even Nighthaunt are quite interesting because they've got that guy that puts like 3 models back every turn. So they have a pretty like medium tempo as an army.
Yeah.
But because they they're a mid-board army, because they're not generally faster unless you're running Hex Wraiths, then they have like a pretty like medium tempo to fast as it goes on.
Yeah.
Because what we did, tempo is a really tough one to describe. This is what I'm trying to say. I don't know if it's all just bullshit. That's what I was trying to make in the video. Like, just put your models down and play games, man.
Yeah.
But like when you're trying to help people at home,
Yeah. Well, I guess it's whether they drive the game or not. So with the tempo, so if they're more of a driver or if they're more reactive. So like an Iron Jaws army tends to drive the game, particularly at the beginning.
oh yes,
Yeah,
we
they're
call that being the beatdown.
They fly across and they're going to, well, yeah. And then whereas other armies will wait for their opponents to do things, so they'll just like, I'll just do the bare minimum until my opponent moves and sort of opens up, and then you can try and exploit any mistakes that they've made.
Mm. Yeah, I agree with that. Yeah, interesting. That's one I'm going to re-explore, the tempo one. I think that like requires diagrams and a whole conversation about it, because like the thing about this stuff is like it's about making it very complicated and then making it really simple again.
Yeah.
Like, you know, because ultimately I think the correct answer for how to play Warhammer well, anyone asks me any questions, is just go play lots of games.
Yeah.
Like, that's a really easy answer.
Yeah.
Like,
Practice, yeah.
Practice.
Practice makes
Practice.
perfect.
And then do all the things that you do when you practice.
Yeah.
Write things down, learn from your mistakes, like, reanalyze what you can do, speak to people, like, train.
Yeah.
Like, that's classic, right?
Yeah.
A huge thing to say in tempo is what you can do turn 1. So many armies just walk forward. That's true.
Yeah.
And actually, that's a huge weakness for a lot of armies, right?
Yeah, I guess it's also, it relies on the speed of the units. So like an Ideneth tempo is pretty consistent because they can just fly around. Like especially old Eels list, the tempo was high and they would just like fly around and smash stuff up.
Yeah.
Whereas an Iron Jaws army, that first turn they bashed across, but then normally when they get separated from the buffers and like from the war chanters, or if the Maw Crusher's gone down and you don't have all the Mighty Destroyers, or now they're within 12, so they can't do the Mighty Destroyers, so now they've reverted to their normal movement. Then they lose that mobility that they had at the beginning. So, yeah, mobility is a big part of.
I think it's actually one of the this is one of those things where they've also destroyed mobility in the game. Like, and I mean this. Let me be super clear. I love Age of Sigmar. I love playing Age of Sigmar. Not going to start. But like from like an architectural like perspective on how the game is built, like they destroyed it because they have like stuff that shoots 30 inches.
Yeah.
Right, and then and you're like, okay, cool, but these move 4 inches.
Yeah. And
you
then
know,
there's other stuff that moves 16 inches.
Yeah, this thing moves 16 inches. So like this has to move for 4 turns to equal that. And you're like, okay, what's their output like? Actually, it's about the same. Like there's never there isn't like an absolute. I mean, Gotrek's the example, right? Yeah. Gotrek's the kind of perfect example in loads of ways. Everyone always like, just avoid him, move around him. Because when he does get you, he's a destroyer of worlds, right? But he doesn't have any way of moving any faster. So Gotrek's that perfect example where they were like, okay, movement 4, not a problem. Because if they get you, they fucking get you.
Yeah.
But then they didn't give that to the other movement 4 units. So you have a lot of like trash units in the game because being able to use the effective range is so much better than potential range, and they normally point stuff like it's potential range, and the effective range on some units is just way too strong. Bow snakes are like shoot 24, move 8, so it's 32 inches.
Yeah.
Right? Like, your movement 4 guy's like, this fucking sucks. And you're like, and then what happens when the movement 4 unit gets over there? It might kill them. Like, it might.
Yeah.
If they don't roll a redeploy.
Yeah.
So it's...
well, yeah, they'll redeploy further than you can move, so...
Yeah, they will. They will. All right, so tempo's really interesting. Anyway, and then just to wrap this up. So these are the different unit roles. Again, like Lord of the Rings characters. So, and again, multiple units can do multiple roles. Like a War Chanter isn't in your list as a damage dealer. He situationally can fight.
Yeah.
Quite well.
Yeah.
Right?
So, yeah, he's not... Yeah. You wouldn't rely on him to...
No.
To kill anything, to
No.
be fair. Yeah.
But he is in here. Like, you're taking him as a support piece.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah, he's always in an Iron Jaws list.
Thank you, Grond. Let me just change that. That's for the memes. Right. Yeah, he's always in the Iron Jaws, right?
Yeah.
So support piece is... So you can have a support and a damage dealer. A good example would be, obviously, Teclis. Because he can fight, he does damage via spells, and obviously also supports his army. Damage dealer is just 10 chosen. 9 eels. Like, it doesn't... Like, it's just in there to slap face.
Yeah.
An anvil is to probably be an anvil and a damage dealer. There aren't many examples of just anvils. Pink Horrors is a good example of just your squig herd, but they also can do damage.
I think... Yeah, there's those 3-up-save dwarf dudes. How are they called? The
Ironbreakers?
Ironbreakers,
Yeah.
They're supposed to be that.
Yeah, that's meant to be their job.
Yeah,
But Phoenix Guard are a better example, right, of an anvil.
Yeah.
Like, and then they kind of fit both roles. So anvils just takes the damage, does the damage. Screen for a unit is like, it just means it's shit. It just gets in the way. Which people just do take those units for screens.
Yeah.
Right? Like,
Just a throwaway unit, so you don't want... It doesn't take much of your resources if you lose them.
well, I see the thing. So me and Tom on the 40k guys had this chat once. A screen is like anything can become a screen.
Oh yeah.
Like literally everything's expendable in the cause of winning the game.
Yes.
Like if it's turn 5 and you have to screen with Archeon, he's got 2 wounds left, but he body blocks you moving something in. Guess what, baby?
That's
Lord of the
his
End
thing.
Times is a screen now.
Yeah.
And then points grabber is like a little bit more unique.
Yeah. Normally a very mobile unit.
Yeah, that just goes grab stuff or like pre-game moves or something like that. And then I don't know if assassin is an actual unit role, because like right now a lot of people are taking like the 5 knight Vexilla banners for Stormcast.
Yeah.
So it's 24-inch range. Pick a point on the ground. Everything within 6 or 3 inches takes D3 mortal wounds once per battle. Beat it 5 times. That's 5 D3 mortal wounds. So you're just like no support characters for you, right? Like that's like an assassin style build.
Yeah. Well, I guess that's what the bugs that you were talking about doing.
Oh, the fast bugs.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Go in, kill a unit, and then whoop out again.
Is that not just a damage dealer though?
Yeah, but it's more targeted.
Yeah.
I guess, assassins are damage dealers though, aren't they? So
I always scream my useless halflings as my freaking champion of Grandor. Like, I didn't do it. Please do not forget pet unit category. Pet.
that'll be his rock-throwing beastman.
Yeah. Hey, Gal, happy resub day. Thank you very much for resubbing. And it's your 12th month in a row. Let's go. Okay. So do you think there are anything else, like there are any other unit roles? I think that's it. Like, maybe they're fairly broad.
Yeah.
But, like, a unit's role is always multiples of these and is also several roles.
Yeah.
That's what I was thinking. Anyway. I don't know if there are any other versions of a unit role. It's kind of why I'm throwing it out there.
Yeah. Yeah, I think you could probably lump Assassin into Damage Dealer, because that's all it is a targeted damage dealer.
It's doing it via being a damage dealer.
Yeah.
It's doing a job.
yeah, even if it's just very targeted amount.
Like a Slan is a perfect like damage assassin, right? Like he just keeps dropping Comet's Call. Scragrot with his little like moon on a
Yeah,
stick,
yeah.
like does that job really
Sniper.
well.
Yeah,
Slangor are definitely assassins. They're assassins, right? It's what they are. um, could separate damage into ranged melee hybrid. Yeah, sure, I agree. So each unit has a primary
I
and
thought you said drug dealer.
well, so each unit has a primary and potentially a couple of secondary roles. I think that's
Yeah,
fair,
yeah.
right? That's like what their job is.
Yeah.
I don't know. When I'm writing a list, I don't just be like, he'll do something when he's there. Like,
Just taking this lad. Don't know what he's there for, but he's
yeah,
there.
I think trading unit, like trading as a concept. I don't know if like a unit's role is to be a trading unit, but like a screen is always a trading unit, like effectively.
Yeah. Yeah.
But trading's a huge thing in 40k. Like for 40k people transitioning to Age of Sigmar, like it's pretty crazy that you don't discuss trading units.
Yeah.
Because that's their whole like a whole thing that they have for the way they score. We do it, but we don't necessarily talk about trading units. And again, to be clear, it's just putting a unit on an objective, then your opponent hits it, but you put it on the back of an objective, so they hit the objective, and then you're like, sweet, now I'm going to charge you. Or in my case, every unit of mine that's a screen is somehow magically just within 18 inches of Kairos. So if you ever charge any one of my units, Kairos is going to fucking shoot you with his guns. Like, so like that's what their job is. Yeah. A trading game doesn't really work in AOS. It works on the board state. Trading.
Oh yeah.
Yeah, I guess you don't trade though. I guess it's more bait. You don't. You're not like. I'm not putting that unit there to trade. Oh, I don't know. Am I?
Well, yeah. I mean, you put it there. You expect to lose it, but then you're gonna take whatever he hits it with, whatever he takes that unit with. You're gonna take for that unit again, and hopefully you've taken a more, a more
valuable piece out.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't like distraction card effects because like it doesn't make sense to a lot of people, but I understand the point. All right, interesting. Now the final question, Nate, is it all bollocks? That's the bit like I can't like.
Definitely is.
That's the easy answer. That's the easy answer. Because like I don't want to sell someone like a bill of goods, right? Like I want it to like actually like I don't want it to be snake oil.
No. It's just putting some terms to some stuff that we do.
So like let's take your current Gits list that you played the other day, right?
Mm-hmm.
Like, so if someone messaged you and said to you, "Hey Nath, I literally built and painted the same list. Like, how do I use the list?
How do I use it? Yeah.
Yeah. Like, are you going to describe every unit? Like I want to know. Like, I'm asking you that question as like just a fan that follows Nathan Prescott's Twitter at Nath Prescott. Please do follow. Like, what would you say? What would you do?
Yeah, I guess I would have to say you've got your screening units.
Yeah.
And then you've got the big unit of Squigs is like a very mobile attacking unit, but it's also a bit of a wound sink, so it can soak up a lot of damage. And then you've obviously got all your support pieces, so you got your sneaky snufflers and your wizards to get those buffs on there. You've got your general who's a big buffing piece, but also can be a threat, but he's quite often there to be a threat more than actually do the damage. But then when you need him to do the damage, he can do it. And then you've got the two units of Boing Drop Bounders who are your counter charge units.
Okay. All right. Nice.
So like putting that into a list, I guess it's more of a counter strike trading sort of army. Although you can do a bit of an alpha. But it's not really an alpha. You can,
and the book's limited, right?
Yeah,
like the book's limited in what you can do.
Because you can, with all the buffs on, you can move super fast. But you're not going to be moving the whole army up. That's the problem. So you want more of a so it's not a true alpha, but it's got that first turn threat that then could act as a pin as well. So so it's picking out the little bits that it can do, but generally it probably more likely plays as like a Counter-Strike army.
Interesting. Yeah, because like a lot of that is like, because it's like what the units are, jobs are,
Yeah.
like is important, and then what the overarching strategy of the
And
way
so
it works.
so the weakness is it doesn't have stuff that can reach out and take stuff off the back of other armies. Although you've always got the threat of teleports, but then they're not. That's not a reliable way to take out stuff from behind. So yeah, but it's got speed on the front edge, but it's more likely to want to move up because once the speed has happened, then it's out of range of some of the buffs. So you want to make sure that when the speed happens, it's pretty conclusive what you do.
Yeah, where you hit.
Yeah,
where you
it's
hit.
got to this got to be telling, so that you've then got enough time to get everything back into position.
Because whenever we're doing live coverage and I'm like talking about the games, because I've talked about hundreds of games at this point, like I'm always like how best to translate that information, but I've never thought about how then to translate that information to people offline in a lot of ways, because like it feels very self-explanatory when you look at it, but I guess it's understanding what the unit roles are to produce like the tempo. Like, I mean, you know, when you strip it back, you're even still having conversations about like so okay, you're a one drop. That means that like you have to change it. Like if your list isn't a one drop, you have to know like what you're doing with your list when you write the list. When you're going first into an army, like can your army attack them or threaten them on the first turn? No, then you have probably a bad list.
Yeah, you've got to. Yeah, you've got to know what you're going to do if they give you first turn. You've got to have some strategy, but then you've also got to be able to have a strategy for if they take first turn and they're coming straight at you. What are you going to do? So yeah,
it's a tough one, right? It's a tough one.
Yeah. Sometimes you got to be aware that okay, I'm not going to do damage this first turn, but I'm going to position so that he can't do damage to me, or they can't do damage to me, but I'm controlling the board, so that if I don't win the priority next turn, so he's got a double turn, they've got a double turn, then what can I do? Or but at the same time make it so that they can't move into a position where they are happy if they lose the turn. So if they then move into another position and then you win the priority again, how confident are they going to be? So I think that's why I play quite cautious sometimes against you on the first turn, and then you have to be fairly cautious because then you can't do the alpha.
Yes.
So you're in the same position that I was in, but I've managed to just tag a couple of objectives and do stuff, and then it's like, oh, where do we go from here? We're still at the beginning of the game, but now first turn relies on a dice roll instead of a.
True. That's true. Rebuilding that framework is quite interesting. Okay, well, it's been a good chat. Thanks, Nath. Chat. I hope you've enjoyed the conversation. I like having these conversations because I don't like to present information like I know all of the answers. Like Warhammer's super complicated. It's full of really clever people who play it. And there are loads of things still to learn about it, in my personal opinion. But Nathan, I can't let you go without showing you one thing, if this is okay. So for podcast listeners, you're not going to be able to see this. But Nathan, what if instead of so my question to you is, instead of taking a Gitz army, right, would you play this army instead? It's an army of goblins riding sheep.
And a bird.
Well, that's a chicken. So if you look, there are Boingrot bounders, but they're bounding on a sheep.
Yeah.
The squigs are sheep. There's 2 mangler squigs, but they're giant sheep. There are goblins swinging sheep.
Yeah.
What do you think?
That is very nice looking army. Check out that one, guy's got a beard. A goblin with a... Oh, there's bottom.
There is a bottom, yeah? Yeah. What do you think?
That's cool. Lost Hobbyist. Army set.
Army set, yeah. So I'll put the link. Yeah, it's Nathan, it's the Bad Moon.
Oh, bad moon.
Thank you to Double Bluff in the chat for finding this for us earlier. I just thought you'd like to see this before we go.
Yeah, no, that's cool.
That is cool, right? That is cool.
Yeah, if somebody did an army of that, they would have that's a fun army, looking army.
Yeah. So, yeah.
Oh, is that a netter with the with the sheets?
Yeah, with the sheets. They throw sheets on you instead of a net. It's cool, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, all right. Okay. Listen, if you've enjoyed the show, thanks very much. Follow Nathan on Twitter or whatever. I hope that you've enjoyed the podcast. If you've got any thoughts and feelings, obviously leave them in the comments below. Loads of love. Bye.
Bye.